so in this we're going to write the equation of both square root and cube root functions given the graph. So the past couple of days in class I've given you the equation, right? And I've asked you to graph the equation that I provide. This is just the opposite. I'm going to give you the graph and I'm going to ask you to write the equation. So if you see, we're going to do square root and we're also going to do cube root. So in a square root graph, we know it's a square root when it cuts off. So see how this starts at the origin? It starts at 0, 0, and then it just curves off to the right, and that's why it's a square root. And the cube root, if you can see, goes left and right forever. So if you're looking at the graph and it goes left and right forever, you know it's a cube root. And if you look at the graph, it has a starting point, and then just kind of curves off to one side. We know that's the square root graph. If you look at the steps under square root, it says h and k is the starting point of the graph. And then on step number 1, I have the transformation equation with a x minus h plus k. So once you find that starting point, like in that case it's 0, 0, once you find that starting point, you just plug in the x value for h and the y value for k. And then step number 2 says count the slope to the point closest. So you have to go exactly one x value over. If you go further than that, this won't work. But if you go to the very next point, you can find the a value for the slope. And I've got 3 examples down here, so I'll show you in a minute. But then cube root hk is not the starting point because this graph doesn't have a starting point. It's infinity. But hk is the inflection point, is its fancy name, but that's the middle point where it kind of looks to turn around, right there. Where the graph kind of flips over, basically, is the inflection point. Okay, so let's do some examples. We're going to do 3 examples. Okay. So we're going to do these 3 examples. So the first thing I notice on this first one, on example A, is that it's going left and right both directions. Okay. So immediately I know that that is a cube root graph and not a square root, right? I know that this is a cube root graph because it's going forever in both directions. Then I can identify, this as hk because that's where the graph flips over, and that value is, it looks like, now be careful on these notes. Some of these graphs count by 2s, some count by 3s. So this graph is counting by 2, so that's actually 2, -6. My pen's not working. That's 2, -6. And then if I look at the next point, the point right next to it is right here. Point right next to it's right there. So this is hk. And this next point that I circled in purple is down 2 over 1. So then it goes down 2 over 1, and I'm going to use all this in just a second. Okay, so it's a cube root graph. 2, -6 is the inflection point, or the hk, and it goes down 2 over 1. So then my actual equation I know is this. So the a value is the slope. Well, I said it went down 2 and over 1. So if I go down 2 over 1, that makes it -2. It's negative because I said down 2. If I said up 2, it would be positive. So it's down 2 over 1. So that A value is negative 2. HK is 2, negative 6. H is a liar. So since H is positive 2, it's X minus 2. And then it's negative 6, so K is minus 6. And that's my answer. Okay, let's do these other two. I'll try to go faster so this isn't a long video. But I know that this is a square root because it has a defined starting point, right? It starts right here at negative 3, 5. That negative 3, 5 is HK. And then if you look, I go 1, 2, 3, down 3, over 1. So since I go down 3 over 1, so when I'm writing my answer, it's a square root graph, so it's going to be this. And for the A value, I went down 3 over 1. So since I went down, it's negative. Since I went down 3, it's negative 3. HK, so H is a liar, so the H is negative 3. So inside the parentheses, we're going to write X plus 3. And then the Y value is positive 5, so we do plus 5. That's my answer. Okay, hopefully this is making some sense. So the last one I see is also square root because it has a defined starting point right here. So this is a square root graph. And that point looks to be negative 1, negative 5. So negative 1, negative 5 is my HK. And then the next point is 1, 2, 3 over 1. So the next point is up 3 over 1. So since it's up 3 over 1, that tells me the A value, remember? So since it's square root, I know it's going to follow this form. That's terrible. Hold on. X minus H plus K. I'm going to try to stay out, there we go, of that dosary. So my answer here, since I went up 3 over 1, it's positive 3 because we went up, right? The others we went down, so it was negative. But this one, it went up, so it's positive. So A is positive 3. The H value is negative 1. So since H is a liar, it's X plus 1. And then the Y value is negative 5. So it's minus 5. And there's my answer. So hopefully this made a little sense. There's 4 questions on the worksheet for you to practice this yourself. Go ahead and give this a shot. We're going to do the test review on Monday, and then there's a couple of these on the review. There's going to be one on the test, and then your test is Tuesday. Hope you'll have a great Friday.